Visas are becoming even harder to come by in America. Some people think it's impossible with the rise in rejections, the new policies, the shortened amount of time you can be in America. It's chaotic and confusing, but hopefully it doesn't have to be. Welcome, friends. We've got a great session today. We got a lot of updates, especially for student visas, but other types of visas as well. And there's big changes you need to be aware of that we're going to guide you, coach you, and help you be better prepared to reduce those rejections, get those approvals. And the American dream isn't dead. Might be a little harder, so it's important to navigate the right way. Hey, friends, welcome to this live session. Our friends who are watching the replay later, I'm Rob with Cheyenne Coaching. And at Cheyenne Coaching, we're all about helping you thrive and succeed in your cross-cultural journey. Today, we're doing a deep dive on visas and immigration, visa interviews. We got an awesome live session with our friend Mandy. You guys have probably recognized her from before, but Mandy, welcome. I know you had an awesome summer of travel, but great to have you back. And please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me back, Rob. And it's always so nice to speak to your followers. I did have a great summer of travel. It's nice to get back into visas and immigration. And there are a lot of updates. And if you haven't seen one of my sessions with Rob before, I am a former visa officer. I worked with the State Department for about 7 years. And I've interviewed over 100,000 visa applicants during my time, from international students to business travelers to O1 visa applicants with extraordinary ability to green card interviews. Pretty much every type of visa interview I have done. So I have a lot of sort of background knowledge on this very specific topic. And, there's been a lot of changes recently. So I'm so glad that you're tuning in so that you can be prepared, especially if you're planning to study or come to the US in the next few months. It's really important that you stay on top of all of these changes so that you can prepare successfully.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Mandy, I love your experience practically as a former U.S. visa officer, but also an immigration attorney. So you definitely have a great perspective from both sides. Myself, I've worked in India for several years and traveled all over the world, so I get where you guys are coming from with trying to go to a foreign place to study, to live, to work. And it's not always easy, but that's why we're here to help you guys out. We've got a really fun topic of lineups today. We're going to do some mock visa interviews with Mandy. We got some giveaways, some live Q&A, so a lot of great stuff. So make sure you guys stay tuned, get your questions ready for later on as well, because we want to help answer your specific questions. So get those ready. But yeah, we want to know where you guys are tuning in from. So welcome everybody again as people are hopping on here. But please let us know in the comments, in the chat, where are you guys watching from? I'm tuning in here from Texas. We got Mandy on the West Coast there in California. And so, yeah, we want to see where you guys are tuning. We got Uganda, Africa. Welcome. We actually got some updates about Africa coming up later today. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But yes, let us know where you guys are watching from today.
Yeah. And thanks so much for reminding the audience, Rob. I think my role is so special because in addition to being a former visa officer, I am also a licensed immigration attorney. And it's been really interesting to see both sides and understand how important, talking to someone or, helping guide people who don't know what it's like to be a visa officer and how tough it is for officers to make these decisions on whether to approve or deny visas. And that's really what I spend the majority of my time doing now. And it feels really nice to give back to the international community and help them succeed in this process.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's jump in here. We want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions and Q&A at the end, which we never get to all the questions. So the big first update that's come out in the last couple of weeks is a new proposal to change the duration of visa status for students. So Mandy, explain this proposal, how it works, and what the potential impact is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, under the existing rule, which is still, in effect right now, a student needs a a visa, an F1 visa, or if you're a visiting scholar, a J1 visa to enter the United States. But once you're here, as long as you are in status, you're taking a full course load, you're following all of the rules, you're not dropping your classes, then you are considered in legal status in the country. Even if your F1 or J1 visa expire, you're okay to stay as long as you are in status. Now, they've proposed a new rule that basically says that they want to change this duration of status rule into more of a fixed timeline. So instead of saying, hey, student, you can come in as long as you're taking classes, following all the rules, you can stay, as long as you're quote unquote in status. Now, what they're proposing is that they're changing that to a fixed timeline of up to 4 years, and it's going to be limited by your program duration. So let's just say you're coming in for an MBA program, it's only 2 years, you would get a fixed 2-year visa. Whereas if you're coming in for your bachelor's degree, it could be a fixed 4-year visa. Now, if you
What
need to
about
extend,
PhD?
yeah, a
Because sometimes
PhD,
those are
right?
like 5 years.
Exactly. That's a great question. And so for students who are doing longer than 4 years, then you're going to have to apply directly to DHS for something called an extension of stay.
Okay.
They've never done this before, so we don't know what that looks like. But what it really looks like for students is they're going to have to be probably more on top of their timeline, and they're going to have to be aware, okay, if it's going to have to go beyond the 4 years, they'll have to pay attention and apply for it. And of course, since they've never really done this extension of stay part of the process, we don't really know what that looks like quite yet. There's also a couple of other rules. F1 students must complete their first year of school at the school that issued their I-20. I know in the
So no
past there have
transferring.
been. Exactly. Some students enter on one school's I-20, and then they immediately change to a different school. That's not going to be permitted anymore. Graduate students cannot change programs before completion. And then here are some really interesting changes is students can actually only go on to the next educational level after completing their course of study. They can't go down or repeat the same level. And that's really
Hmm.
interesting because I know a lot of students in the past have, done multiple master's degrees or multiple bachelor's degrees, and it looks like they're clamping down on that and they're not going to allow you to do that. And then one other major change is that they're going to change the grace period for F1 students from 60 days down to 30 days. So you'll have a 30-day grace period to depart the US after completing your program and not 60 days.
And again, this is a proposal. It's not a new law yet, not a new rule, but
Yes.
seems like this would also then get rid of OPT, which is the work option after graduation. Does that sound like it's possible?
I actually think that's a completely separate thing. So
Okay,
as of
so
right
that's a
now,
separate that's not
yeah,
so it wouldn't be
so
touching OPT.
exactly. So that's
Okay,
good news. It's not going
okay.
to affect OPT. And so, again, like Rob mentioned, this is just a proposed rule. And so, right now, a lot of professionals and interested parties are submitting public comments. So, I know a lot of immigration attorneys and schools are submitting public comments to have the committee review before September, until September 29th. And even if this were to pass into law, there still could be changes. And even if it gets approved, there could be litigation in the courts. So I think we're
Mhm.
looking at a pretty long journey. So there's no need to stress about it right now, but just keep in mind that there could be new rules that you'll want to be focused on and understanding exactly what that means for your situation.
Yeah, definitely something worth following in the news, checking with colleges, and, considering this, as you make your future plans, but nothing hard and fast yet, but who knows what will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly. So happening
yeah.
fast.
Well, let's talk about a new rule that has been implemented. Seems like a new rule is now that you cannot do visa interviews in another country that's outside of your home country. There are some specific exceptions. So, Mandy, tell us about this new rule.
Yeah, absolutely. So this rule happened, I think it was 2 Saturdays ago on September 6th. And it basically, there was an announcement from the State Department that said, effective immediately, everyone must apply in their home country or country of legal residence. So, I think for a lot of students, the way that it used to be in the past is you might have to go to a third country because you couldn't get a visa appointment in your home country. And so now there's no longer that flexibility. And it's really important that you plan in advance. And I realize not a lot of people are aware of this rule, even. So you want to be really careful because if you do schedule an appointment outside of your home country, you might show up for your interview and they might either turn you away and not do the interview, or at the completion of your interview say, oh, we can't grant you the visa. You're going to have to go back to your home country. So something really important to pay attention to. And then additionally, it says country of legal residence. So my take on that is, where you're currently living legally. So perhaps you're in a different country for studies or for work. And so far that seems to be okay, but it's also not defined as to whether or not you have to have a green card in that country to interview
Mhm.
or if just living there is okay. Anyways, it gets pretty nuanced. So just be aware for now. You want to plan ahead because you don't have that flexibility of going somewhere with a shorter wait anymore. And so you have to interview in your home country and keep on top of how long it's going to take you to get a visa appointment for your home country.
Yeah, planning ahead is even more important now, because there might be more limited slots, more or less appointments, and so you don't wanna wait till the last minute.
Exactly.
All right, we've got some changes, for visa validity for African countries. I do not know about this one yet, so Mandy, take it away and let us know what our friends need to know.
Yeah, basically a few weeks ago, the State Department came out with these new rules. Normally, all countries, including African countries, would get a certain type of reciprocity, right? And what that basically means is, okay, you will, on normally you will get a visa that has a certain type of validity. So for student visas, that would be a 4-year validity, multiple entries. And but the changes were specific to African countries. So what that means is that countries like Nigeria and Ghana and Ethiopia and Cameroon, etc., their visa statuses changed from the multi-year, multi-entry to 3-month visas, one single entry. And so that is a big change and it affects African students because if you're trying to apply early to go to school, you need to make sure that your visa validity overlaps with when you can enter the US. Because if you
Mhm.
apply too early, then you're not going to, if it expires, you won't be able to enter the country. So, again, something to just be aware of. You want to make sure that you're planning because, again, this timeline gets a little bit tricky. Once you get your visa approved, you can actually only enter the United States within 30 days of your program start date. But if you
Mm,
only have a 3-month visa, you want to make sure that these timelines overlap so that you won't have any problems entering the country. And then, assuming that your program is longer than 3 months, if you ever have to exit the country, you're going to have to get a new visa.
sounds good, and this is the whole continent of Africa, every country there.
Yeah, so, I don't wanna say specifically that, but it's
Oh,
really important that you check the visa reciprocity tables,
okay.
and so that's actually a State Department website. If you actually just Google, US State Department reciprocity tables, then you can click on your home country and see what that reciprocity looks like. But the ones that I know are true are the 4 that I've mentioned.
Sound
Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Cameroon.
okay, great. More changes coming as well. Something with waiver applications and a reviewing process. Mandy, tell us what this means and how people can be better prepared.
Yeah. So sometimes, a person has a complicated issue going into their visa interview. Perhaps, you had a run in with the law and you got arrested, or perhaps the last time you went to the US, you overstayed your visa. So sometimes when you've broken the law, you might be subject to what's called a visa ineligibility, also commonly known as a visa ban. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't re-enter the United States. You may just need a waiver from a recommendation from the visa officer, and it goes to a special office with CBP, and they review your the waiver request, and they decide whether or not to approve. So, as a visa officer, I've approved tons of waivers for visa ineligibility, so I know a little bit about this process. Now, the new process is so in the past, if you've already been approved for a waiver, it's fairly easy to get a waiver again. And sometimes they won't re-review it. They'll just say, oh, he got approved last time. Looks like he's been traveling well on the visa. Go ahead and renew that waiver. But now the new rules say that even if a waiver has been approved before, they're going to have to re-review that waiver to make
Hmm.
sure that this person is still eligible. So I think it's just a little bit more of a monitoring process. And so if you've gotten a waiver before with your visa, just don't expect that automatically you'll get another waiver. They're probably going to review the facts of your case and make sure that you're still eligible.
Definitely. All right, friends. In just a little bit, we're going to do some mock interviews, some live Q&A. We've got a couple points here that we want to cover of, again, some important updates. Let's see. I think, yeah, some of you guys are asking questions in the chat. Some of those things we covered earlier about the changes, like being able to change colleges. So we talked about that at the very beginning of the conversation. But a couple more things to help you guys out. And again, just a reminder of a rule about DS-160s, that important document that can really make or break that interview. So Mandy, what can our friends do to be better prepared with their DS-160?
Yeah. So this change came, a couple of months ago, and it used to be that you can kind of submit your DS-160 as long as it's before your interview, and different posts sort of handled it a little bit differently. But now what we're seeing is that you actually have to submit your DS-160 at least 72 hours before your interview. If you do it after that timeline, then they might not be able to do the interview. And I think it's just a way to make sure that students are filling out their applications on time. Sometimes they might want to do a little bit of re-review. I've heard of stories of that, but we don't know for sure that's happening. But in any case, they want you to submit the DS-160 at least 72 hours before your interview. And I've
Mhm.
already heard from students who submitted after this timeline that they have been turned away from their interview. So something really important to pay attention to.
Okay. Wow. That would be discouraging to get turned away like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And there's nothing they can do once that's happened then.
Yeah, exactly. Especially now, that appointment wait times are really long. And so you want to be really careful of these little rules to not, give up that interview slot that you've probably waited a
Mhm.
long time for.
Totally. Yeah. Every little detail matters and getting it right. So yeah, don't miss that opportunity.
Mhm.
Okay, friends, we want to hear from you before we jump into some more fun interaction. Where are you guys going to be giving your visa interview? Let us know the city, maybe where the consulate or embassy is, maybe what visa type as well. So let us know in the comments. If you've got a visa interview coming up, let us know either the country, the city, the embassy, the consulate. We'd love to see where our community is represented and planning to do these visa interviews. I know there's rumors that people talk about this consulate is more difficult or this embassy is more easy. I think there's maybe some truth, maybe some not truth to that, but let us know in the comments where you guys are going to be giving your visa interviews. Would love to be seeing where you guys are planning for your upcoming visas. So let us know in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Rob, it's just so important for everybody to be aware that, I think these new rules coming out are making it tougher, and you shouldn't disregard them. But also keep in mind that there are a lot of people hard at work still trying to help international students. I work with a lot of US universities and other immigration attorneys, and there are people here to support you. We
Yeah,
want you to feel welcome, and we're going to do everything we can to help you succeed in this process. But you also have to make sure that you're getting good guidance, preparing ahead of time, making sure that you're not, just going into your interview unprepared, because that's one of the biggest reasons for visa denials.
totally. Yeah, even more than ever now, it's more important to be prepared. In just a second, we're going to share some tips. We got one friend preparing for Brazil in Sao Paulo, tourist visa. That's exciting. Again, let us know where you guys will be giving those visa interviews in the chat. But before we jump into the giveaway, Mandy's got a few helpful tips. There's lots of new rules. Again, under this current government administration in the US, a lot of things have happened with immigration. So, Mandy, what are a couple of these prep tips that our friends can really maximize and be aware of?
Yeah. I think the best way to do it is to make sure that you're getting expert guidance. I work with a lot of students who will say, oh, my visa agent told me to do this, or my parents, or my aunt and uncle told me to do this, and then I got denied a visa. You want to make sure that you know where the source of information is coming from. I know sometimes you have well meaning friends or family that tell you to do certain things a certain way because that's how they were able to get their visas approved, but everybody's situation is a little bit different. And this is why my partner Travis and I were both former visa officers. We noticed that we were giving the same types of tips to students over and over again, and to business visitors and tourists as well. And so we actually created an online course that walks you through the entire US visa process for both F1 visas and B1, B2 visas for tourism and business. And so, it's almost 5 hours of video lessons. It goes through how to complete your DS-160 so that you're not raising any red flags at your visa interview, because the DS-160 is the first thing the visa officer looks at when they start your interview. And we've been really busy because as these changes have rolled out over the past several months, we have been busy updating our course, you know, so regularly, because we want to make sure that you have the most accurate information. And so you can always trust that when you take our course, it is the most up to date information at the moment of what is out there. Because when there are changes, we make changes to our course immediately. And so you want to make sure that you are just planning ahead, getting expert advice, because sometimes how you start your interview, what you say to the visa officer, how do you communicate with them? What does your body language say? What are you wearing? All of these things, everything matters, because they're basically weighing all of these factors when they're deciding in just a few minutes' time whether to approve or deny your visa. And so, again, it can be a really risky process, because once you get denied a visa, it stays in your visa record forever. And I want everyone to have a very clean visa record, because, even in the future, you might decide you want to come back to the US for work or to visit. You don't want any sort of past visa denial history to affect future visa applications, which is why we wanted to do something that was very cost effective for students and for tourists.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a big fan of the ZF Visa courses, the coaching. We've also got a discount. Again, if you use the code RobChai, you guys get 10% off those. And in just a second, we're going to be giving away a free course. So get excited for that. But great testimonials. Planning to prepare, especially mock interview practice, is the best way to improve your chances on getting success. There's been increased rejections, shorter interview times, longer wait times, and so every little bit counts. And so these are things that you don't want to take too casually. But if you're serious about a visa, do the serious preparation, so you're giving yourself a better chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. To say thanks for hanging out with us today, we're going to do a fun little giveaway. So I'm going to pull this up here. this is free access to one of the courses, either the student visa or travel tourist visa that ZF Visa Guide has prepared. And to qualify, put in the chat hashtag ZF Visa. I'm going to pull up the screen here, share with you guys. Ooh, wrong button here. And only need to put it in once. Got it here. So put hashtag ZF Visa. There you go. Anna's got it right. Only need to do it one time to get entered in. We'll give you guys a second here. And this is a chance for a free, awesome course. Be best prepared for your visa interview. So go ahead and drop hashtag ZF Visa in the chat. One time per person is all that's necessary.
This is always my favorite part.
Yeah.
Such a cool tool.
Gotta love StreamYard. If you guys ever doing live streams, webinars, highly recommend StreamYard. Okay, about 10 more seconds here. We're going to see who the winner is. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Who is our lucky winner? All right. Gaming World. Whoever that is, congratulations. Give them some love in the chat. Please reach out to me. Drop me an email or message me on social media, and we'll get you the link for your free course access. So thanks for participating, everybody. Now we get to some fun parts here. We've had you guys fill out a form and invited some people to do mock interview practice. Looks like we've only got one person here in the queue right now, but we're going to bring Esther on. Let's see if we can make this work. All right, Esther, you're up. Are you there? Welcome. Esther, can you turn your camera and audio on, please, and join us? Hello, are you there, Esther?
She might be on mute, maybe.
She's not muted.
Mm-hmm.
She was on the camera earlier. Esther, let me know if you're available or not. I think it's working. Let's see. Bring her back. Esther, can you turn your camera on and join us? There we go. Hello, can you hear us? Oh, we're not getting any sound from you. We can see you now, but no sound. So yeah, there's no audio coming through for you. So make sure you've got the... There we go.
I think I can hear you now.
Okay.
All right, can you say something nice and loud so we can hear you?
I can hear the both of you. Can you hear me now? I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yeah, you'll have to speak pretty loud so we can hear you.
Right.
So Esther from Nigeria.
Okay, no problem.
Hello,
Yes,
hello.
from
You're
Nigeria.
going for F1 visa, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and it says you were denied J1 visa in 2023.
Yes, I was denied.
Okay. Now you're going for a master's in information technology at Emporia State. And you've got some scholarship as well. So, okay. Mandy, is there anything else you need to know before we get started?
Um, Actually, yeah. Esther, could you tell me what kind of program you were going for your J1 visa previously?
Going for a J1 visa to finish my undergrad in Mechanical University at the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University at Tallahassee, Florida.
Mhm,
Yeah, so I was supposed to
mhm,
finish my undergrad. That's my 500 level. But here in Nigeria, it's 5 years. So I was
mhm,
supposed to do 500 level over there in FAMU. That's the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. But I didn't
mm,
go. I got the admission, but I didn't go because I was denied under the Section 214B of the U.S.
mm.
Immigration.
Okay. And was that a very fast interview for the J1 visa?
Sorry, I did not get that.
Oh, I was asking if it was a fast visa interview. Like, were you denied pretty quickly during the interview?
No, 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 no. She took about 2 minutes before, yeah, I was handed the blue paper. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that visa denial, but let's do what we can to prepare you for your upcoming interview. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very
So,
much, Matthew.
yeah, I'm going to go straight into it. Okay. So I'm going to be the visa officer now. And you're walking to my window.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning. Why are you
Okay.
going to the US?
Good morning. I'll be going to the U.S. to pursue my master's in information technology at the Empire State University, Empire, Kansas. And I chose the U.S. because the U.S. has one of the best global economy. And doing my master's in that advanced environment is going to give me the industry relevant skills and also practical hands-on skills that I need to uh, come back and implement into the digital transformation in my country here in Nigeria.
Mm. Okay. And how are you paying for your education?
Well, my parents are going to sponsor me. My father is the general manager in Dangote in Nigeria, one of the leading companies here in Nigeria and the only company that has a refinery. And my mother is the chief medical officer of MTN Nigeria, one of the leading telecom companies here in Nigeria and Africa, actually. They sponsored my brother to the Rome Business School in Italy. He did his master's in Data science, yes, he's back now into the country and he currently works for an international company, but he's based here in Nigeria. So both of
Okay.
them,
Sorry.
my and
I missed. Sorry, Esther, I missed that last part. You said something about your brother. Did your brother go to the US and study there?
no, no, no. He studied in Italy. Italy. He did his master's in Italy.
Okay. And
Yes,
now he's
yes.
back
So
in
they
Nigeria?
sponsored my brother, and he's back in Nigeria. Yes.
Okay. And what do you plan to do in the future once you graduate with this degree?
Okay. My career goals are just to contribute into the digital transformation here in Nigeria. So having my master's in information technology is going to give me a foundational broader knowledge into the different aspects in technology and AI. You know, Nigeria is currently at the start of adopting these new emerging technologies like AI, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, right? But we unfortunately we lack enough skilled professionals there that can actually champion that drive and drive it to the forefront. So doing my master's in that field is going to equip me with these skills and come back to equip more people, right? And contribute into and be part of those that can actually, champion that digital transformation here in my country, Nigeria.
Okay. Thank you very much, Esther. Okay, so that was there were parts of the interview that I really thought you did very, very well. Okay, um, but a couple of pieces of feedback that I would have for you is first of all, Rob mentioned that you were getting a scholarship from Emporia University. That is a very powerful point in your profile, in your application, and I want you to bring that up immediately, probably in your first answer. Okay,
All
because
right.
not everybody gets a scholarship, and when you get a scholarship, that means you're someone very qualified that the school really wants there. And so because that's such a strong positive in your case, you definitely want to mention it immediately, even if you're not asked, right? And in this case, I even asked, like, oh, how are you paying for this education? Well, I'm getting a scholarship, but I'm also going to get some help from my parents, right? One thing I really liked
Okay.
about your interview is when you talked about how your parents are going to help fund your education, you go into detail about what you do. That's definitely something that I want all international students to do. You can't just say, well, my parents are going to help me, but not talk about what your parents do. And here, Esther did a really, really good job with that. Okay. For everyone else who's following along. Um, and then the next part is, I think when you're talking about what you want to do in the future, once you graduate with this degree, it's really important to be a little bit more specific. And what I mean by that is, I thought it was very interesting when you talked about, well, digital transformation in Nigeria, and you're really interested in AI. But I think oftentimes what a visa officer is looking for is concretely, what will you be doing? Will you be applying for
Okay.
jobs at technology companies? Will you be trying to start your own company? Will you be going back to improve upon the family business? If you have a plan, if you don't have a plan, come up with a plan. But if you do have a plan, you want to talk more specifically about, how do you actually plan to implement the digital transformation process? Maybe you might say, I plan to apply for a job at one of the big AI companies in Nigeria. This is, the first company that has come up with using AI in its process. And I know with a US degree, I will be much more competitive, right? That's obviously just one example. But here's where you really want to do some thinking about what kind of job you would actually really like to do, because that's what a visa officer wants to know. They want to know that this degree is going to help you practically and help you get the job that you want in your home country. You need to be a little bit more detailed.
Okay.
And then one other tip I would give you is, I think in your first answer, you go into a little bit like why you chose the US. I think for the visa officer, it's actually more important that they understand why you chose your specific school versus the country in particular, because your answer, US has really great education, very good education related to technology. I think that's something that's very common for visa officers to hear. And you always, especially when it comes to this point, you want to be a little bit more unique and really come to your own reasons for maybe
I can't
you
hear you
chose,
any longer.
why you chose, maybe the state to go to school in. All of those are very interesting to a visa officer instead of a more generic
I
answer
can't
about,
hear you. I can't hear you any longer.
which is something they hear all the time, and they know the education is great. They want to know more about you and better understand what motivates you and what's going to make you a great student. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
I think she's having some connection issues.
I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that,
Okay.
Esther. I guess you can always rewatch.
Yeah. So Esther, you can rewatch the recording after and catch what you missed here at the end. So thanks for joining us. We're gonna hop to another one right now. So thank you, Esther. Okay. We're gonna bring on Miriam now. Welcome, Miriam. Go ahead and turn your video on and your audio on, please. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Good,
Good,
good morning.
good. Great to see you. Miriam, you're preparing for also student visa F1 from Nigeria coming up next month, and you've had a prior rejection, correct?
Yes,
And when was
that's
the
correct.
rejection beforehand?
It was on the 25th of August, just last month.
Okay, also for student visa.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, welcome. I'm gonna let Mandy take over here.
Sounds great. Hi,
Hi,
Miriam.
Mandy.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely meeting you too.
Yeah, I love your, very official office space, and you have great audio. So that's a very good start to our mock interview practice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to just go straight into it. I want to do the interview, hear how you answer the questions, and give you feedback. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. What is your purpose of travel to the US?
Good morning, Ma. I'm traveling to the US for my master's in business analytics at University of Texas in Dallas.
Okay, and how many schools did you apply to?
I applied to 4 schools and I was admitted into three. Two of those schools gave me merit-based scholarships, but the three schools were for fall admission, fall semester admissions, and then one was a spring semester admission.
Okay, and how do you plan to pay for your education?
So I do not have a scholarship for this school, but my father is a CEO of a very big company in northern Nigeria, and his company makes a revenue of about 100 million annually, and he's prepared to pay for my education. We have three offices here in northern Nigeria. His company is into agriculture and real estate and has been operational for well over 15 years. I
Mm,
have two siblings that have graduated and are working and doing very well. I'm the last of those three, so my father is well equipped to take care of my education.
mm. And what do you plan to do once you graduate with this degree?
So I work as a senior data analyst at the Federal High Court of Nigeria, which is why I'm going for a master's in business analytics. I need this degree to meet the prerequisite for promotion to the role of principal data analyst. So once I get my degree, I'll be coming back to take up that promotion. So this degree is not just so that I can meet the requirements for my promotion, but also so that I can function well in my new office because my curriculum aligns very well with the job description of a principal data analyst at the Federal
Mm.
High Court.
Have you ever traveled internationally before?
Yes, I have. I have visited Doha and I've also visited Kigali.
And were those both for tourism or for work or?
Both were for tourist purposes, but I've also traveled to various states in Nigeria for work purposes because in my position, I work at the headquarters of the Federal High Court. So I visit other divisions around the country to ensure that they are going along with our data guidelines to set up their systems and the likes.
Mm. Okay, so thank you so much, Miriam. I think that's the end of the interview. And I just want to say, first of all, you did a really good job. It was really easy to understand you. You speak very clearly. You have a very nice presence. And certain things I really liked about your interview was when you went into detail about what your father does. You're very clear that he's a CEO of a big corporation. And you said, okay, this is how much he makes in revenue. He's been running it for 15 years. Those are exactly the kinds of details that I look for as a visa officer that helps me make my decision. I think maybe you can even offer a little bit more detail, like, how many people work full time at the company. And I know you mentioned, the company does real estate and agriculture, that maybe a little bit more context for, well, what we do is, or what he does is, he takes land, he improves upon it, he rents it out, at least so the visa officer has a little bit more knowledge, because sometimes for a visa officer, agriculture and real estate seems a little bit like they're different industries. So if it's a unique proposition that the company has, even just one quick sentence about, his company basically does this and is able to do that. That way the visa officer knows what that means, right? To do something in real estate and agriculture. I think for you, because you're not getting a scholarship, there's no need to mention, there's no need to hedge a little bit and say, well, even though I didn't get a scholarship, the visa officer is not even thinking about that, right? So instead, I think if you just go straight into, well, I am going to have the full support of my father. He works as the CEO of a big company that basically does X, Y, and Z in real estate and agriculture. There's about, 50 full-time employees working for him right now, whatever the real number is, right? Obviously, I don't know the details of your father's company, but you want to insert some key details like how many people work for him. I like that you mentioned he's been running the business for over 15 years. Last year, the revenue was this much. Those are some key details that were great, and I want you to include a little bit more of that. And then I think to talk about, I also really liked how you talked about how many siblings you had and you're the baby and your father is ready to sponsor your education. I think one other thing that I would want you to go into detail a little bit more is, you have this great job right now. And once you graduate, you're going to be eligible for this promotion. I think instead of, me asking more questions, I would like you to volunteer more information about, well, I've already had a conversation with my company. They're giving me an excused leave of absence to go get this education. And once I come back, I will be eligible for a promotion. Some other details that could really help you is how much will your salary increase once you get this degree, right? These are very key practical details that help a visa officer understand why this degree is so important. But that is a very powerful part of your case, already having a job and a promotion waiting for you when you come back. So you need to prioritize and emphasize that more and give more details about, the discussions with your company and how this is going to help you and how much this is going to increase your salary. And so these are just a couple of the tips that I have, but I think you are someone that would really benefit from taking our F1 visa online course, because we go into a lot more detail about, if you've had a prior refusal, what should you do? How should you start the answer to your first question? And I think those will really help you, especially because you've already been denied a visa before and it was a more recent visa denial. So if you can do it, consider making that investment in taking our course. You can watch the lessons as often as possible, especially the complicated lessons where you might have to go back. We also offer examples of good interviews, what they sound like versus bad interviews. And finally, this is really important for everyone, but if you take our full course, which is what we just gave away, we actually do live mock interview practice and live Q&A sessions every 2 weeks so that you will have an opportunity to practice with either myself or my partner, Travis, another former visa officer. And all we do in that 1 hour Q&A is practice mock interviews and for all of our students of our course. And so usually everybody is learning from each other. And just a really, really important part of this practice component is that you need to practice and hear what you sound like. So anyways, I'm going on, but I just think it would be so helpful to you.
Awesome. Yes, Miriam.
I have a question. It's highly subjective, but do you think that with my interview, before I improve on all the things that you mentioned, would that be an interview you would approve as a visa officer?
I think with a little bit of help, with a little bit of tweaking, I think you can absolutely succeed at your next interview. You have great presence and a lot of your answers, some of it is already great. But I think there are things that you can improve upon, especially, for example, the first question. The first question is the most important question of the entire interview. It sets the tone for the interview. And I would want you to say a lot more than just, I'm going for my master's degree at this school. And so we go into a lot more detail of what you need to say. to really kind of stand out and make an impression on the visa officer in our course.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Miriam. Good job, and hopefully this is helpful for you. Okay. Thanks for everyone's patience. We're going to do some live Q&A now. So if you guys have questions, please drop them in the chat, in the comments. We're going to bring them up on the screen. A few rules. Again, ask a question just one time. If you ask it over and over and over again, we're not going to pick it. Don't spam the comments. If it's a burning question you want us to pick, do a super chat. We're going to prioritize the super chats. And as always, we have also great free resources. Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, ZF Visa and Shine Coaching both have weekly newsletters that go out with, I love the ZF Visa newsletter with great practical tips. There's lots of great free resources out there for you guys. So please check those out. But with our remaining time, we want to do some live Q&A. So if you guys have questions, please drop them in the chat. We're going to bring them up here and get through as many as we can. All right, Mandy. David's asking for some tips. Someone who's applying for an F1 visa, but who's been denied a visitor visa before.
Yeah, it's a great question. And David, I think, there is some similarities between the F1 visa and the B1, B2. The criteria is a little bit different, but I think for everyone listening in, how you start the interview is really, really important. You want to properly frame your situation for the visa officer. And so if you're applying for an F1 visa, I think some important things for the visa officer to know up front is what type of degree are you getting? Which school are you going to? And then, maybe offering a good reason for why you're getting this degree. What do you plan to do in the future? And so that would probably be my top tip. I would also recommend that if you have very solid funding, because that question will definitely come up. How are you paying for your education? And this is not something that would come up from a visitor visa interview in 2019. That's something that you want to prepare for, talking about whether or not your family is supporting you, whether an aunt or uncle is supporting you, whether or not you have a scholarship, or perhaps you've gotten a student loan. All of those things are really important in being very clear to the visa officer in how you present that information. Because a lot of times what I tell international students that I'm working with is it's not just about sharing information with the visa officer. It's not like you memorize a bullet pointed list and you just go in there and you repeat everything that you memorize. Visa officers actually hate memorized answers. So what you really want to do is really share your personal story with them and be able to connect with them on that level so they can understand what is going to motivate you to be a really good student and to go back to your home country after your studies. And so I think that's really what our course does, is share with you that it's important how you communicate, not just what you're saying.
I like it. All right. Ritvik is asking, has there been any changes to the EB2 NIW visas lately?
Yeah. So far, no specific changes with EB2 NIW. I do think that visa interviews are getting tougher because of the mandate coming from the administration. And so what we've seen is that visa officers are being a little bit tougher on visa applicants across all visa categories, even for green cards. And so you just want to make sure that you're extra prepared.
Sounds good. We've got a couple questions regarding this idea of what has changed. So one person's saying, if it's an interview after refusal, wouldn't the consular ask along the lines, something like, what has changed? Is that a common question?
Mhm.
And then John Mike's also asking, what has changed question? What are tips, or what's a good kind of response, in a multiple attempt, or after a rejection? So maybe just kind of talk to that concept and idea, Mandy.
Yeah, that is a great question. And definitely, if you've been denied a visa before, it's possible that this will be the first question that you're asked. What has changed since your last interview, especially if your last interview was not that long ago? So my first tip for being asked this question is, first of all, sometimes the question is, has anything changed since your last interview? If you get either of these questions, make sure to say, yes, something has changed. Because if you say, no, nothing's changed since my last interview, it basically gives the visa officer an immediate response of denying your visa, because it's easy for them to say, oh, nothing's changed, I can go ahead and deny. So if you feel like, my last visa interview was really recent, not much has changed, you want to find something that has changed. And, one tip is perhaps it's just something that you didn't get a chance to share with the visa officer last time.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Have something to answer. If you say nothing has changed, then you're probably going to get the same result as you got before.
That's right. That's right.
So being able to answer that with quality and detail is important if you're going back after a prior refusal. So
Right. And just, for John's question, what's the best response? I think it's really hard to know without really knowing anything about your background and what could have changed in your situation. And so Travis and I, my partner, again, another former visa officer and immigration attorney, we do one-on-one meetings with clients as well. If you think that this, you want to be extra prepared and you think you want more than just our online course, you can also book one-on-one meetings with us. It's more expensive. That's why I really want people to take the online course, because it just gives you so much information that most students have questions about. But that is also an option so that we can better understand your situation and help you get to the root of what will help you succeed on something like a third attempt.
yeah, and I'm seeing some questions in the comments of like, "Hey, it's my first time. What are tips?" Or, "Hey, I'm coming back after some rejections." So we've already got lots of videos on YouTube all about that. So we're not going to take time to answer those because we've already published lots of videos on our YouTube channels. So go to our visa interview playlist, go watch that, get those tips there. We want to try and answer the more specific questions during this live time today. All right, Karthik's asking, they're from India. Recently, they had an F2 visa, so a spouse visa that was refused. Now trying to apply for a B2 for a short trip. What advice would you have on this situation?
Yeah, I would say that it's actually usually pretty unusual to be denied an F2 visa, unless they have some questions about your relationship or perhaps questions about what your partner is doing in the US. And so, in this situation, if you've already been denied an F2 visa, it's going to make it more difficult for you to qualify for your B2 visa unless you can get to the bottom of what the visa officer is concerned about. And so I would probably recommend that you have a one-on-one meeting with me or my partner so we can help you pinpoint what the issue is, especially if you brought all your documentation and you have your marriage certificate. Again, it's very unusual because that type of interview is more based on your relationship with someone already in the US. And so I would definitely do some extra preparation before this next interview, because it will make it more difficult for you to qualify for your B2.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is assume why you were rejected before and then prepare the wrong way. So make sure that you get a better understanding. That's what coaching is really helpful for, to figure out what the issue is and then how to redirect and have a better, strategic line of attack so that you can have the right answers, the right topics that the visa officer wants to hear to overcome a previous refusal.
And you're so right, Rob, because again, I mentioned this before, but every time you go in for your visa interview, there's a record that's kept in the State Department's systems about what you talked about and why your visa is denied. And so every time you go in for your interview, you want to give it your 150% and not just try this and try that and try this, because then all of a sudden, once you get a certain number of visa denials, it becomes very difficult to get your visa approved, even if you prepare the right way on your 5th try or your 10th try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Ibrahim is asking, does nervousness in front of the visa officer irritate them? And maybe just more in general, how does being nervous or not confident impact a visa interview? Please share about your experience with that, Mandy.
Yeah, I think visa officers know that the visa interview is a very nerve-wracking process for most people. And so I think to that point, they expect a certain normal amount of nervousness. It's not going to annoy them or make them think less of you. But if you're really nervous, where you can't seem to answer the questions, or you're pausing a lot. Visa officers are very attuned to reading people. They're paying attention to how you're standing, what you're wearing, what your facial expressions are. And I think nervousness really for people comes from not being prepared, right? So if you prepare in advance, you know what are the likely questions that will come up, you know how you're going to answer those questions, then before you know it, you will be much more confident and much more natural and authentic and be able to share who you are with the visa officer in just the few minutes that you have. And really, preparation takes away nervousness, which is why I'm glad you're here and why we're all here today, is so you guys can be prepared so that you won't feel those jittery nerves at your interview.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. So Phineas is asking, what about a quick refusal? Someone goes in, maybe it's one question and done, or they don't even really get to give a full answer and they get refused. How can
Mm.
they turn that around? Or, is there a chance to come back from a really quick refusal in the second interview?
Mm. So this is such a great question. And I think as a former visa officer, and I did this for so many years, I actually think that quick refusals are better than lengthy interviews and then a refusal. Because what this tells me is that the visa officer didn't even really get into your situation before doing a quick refusal. Perhaps it was because you didn't answer the first question very well and they thought, oh, I feel like I've heard all I needed to hear to make a decision. Now, this gives you a lot of room for improvement. And it means that because they didn't explore the substance of whether or not you're actually qualified, that you have a good chance of getting it turned around as long as you prepare the right way and you immediately go into the next interview showing them how prepared you are, knowing exactly, what they're asking about. And so I think a big part of our visa online course is talking about how to make the job of the visa officer easier, because
Mhm.
they're always looking for quick denials and quick approvals. And you definitely want to be in the quick approvals group. And so you're going to do great as long as you prepare and you know what they're looking for.
Definitely. No, those are some great tips. Yeah, it's interesting to think that a quick refusal is better than a refusal after a long interview. So I've never thought of it that way. I like that. All right, we've crossed the hour. Mandy, do you need to head out or do you have time for another question or two? What's your schedule like?
Yeah, let's do another couple of questions.
Okay, great. Got a couple good ones here. We got home ties. So what kind of home ties are effective to demonstrate, and should applicants mention that has changed in the DS-160 explanation section?
Hmm, great questions. So, I think the best kinds of home ties to demonstrate and to talk about are what is waiting for you at home once you graduate. And this is why during the mock interviews, I really spent some time talking to both Esther and Miriam about what are you planning to do once you graduate? Because I think a visa officer has to feel that something is going to draw you back to your home country, whether it's specific plans for your career or future goals. And so I think they both did a really good job talking about, they have family who are back home and here are the jobs that they're planning to do. And so I think those are probably the strongest indicators of what are good home ties. And as to the second question, I would probably not mention what has changed in the DS-160, but I would explain why you're qualified for the visa and what you plan to do with your visa once you graduate. So very similar to what your first answer would sound like. If you have a scholarship, that's also a great place to mention in your DS-160 if you've been denied
Mhm.
before you actually have a scholarship.
Sounds good. Let's see here. All right, let's go to this direction. David's asking, how can one answer the question, how will you finance your studies having a Empower loan, so an education loan, as the only source of funding for studies and living expenses.
Yeah. So lots of students get visas approved even if they only have a student loan, whether it's from Empower or some other organization. I think what's important is that you're able to demonstrate to the visa officer that once you graduate, the type of career that is waiting for you will give you the ability to be able to pay back that loan. That's really what they're looking for. And if you're not able to demonstrate that and they have doubts that you'll be able to pay back your loan, then that's when denials happen based on this reason, right? So, if you're able to demonstrate the type of job that you're eligible for, that you will be competitive for once you have this degree, and be able to explain to them how that's going to help you make those monthly payments back, I think that's going to be very important in your interview. And if you're not able to explain that, then I think anyone would wonder, well, how are you planning to pay this back if you're planning to leave the country, right? Because if your only way of paying back this loan is staying in the United States and working, that is going to be a big indicator of having immigrant intent and not coming back to your home country. And that might be an issue.
Great. I think that's a good one to wrap up today. Again, if you guys tuned in later, we covered lots of new rule changes, proposals. You can go back and watch the recording. Mandy, I know it's discouraging times. Maybe what's some encouragement you want to leave our friends with today who've been joining us?
Yeah, I just want to say, everything that you read about in the news or, oh my gosh, rules are changing. Yes, it's true, but it is absolutely possible for you to get your visa approved and come here and have your dream education, get your dream OPT experience. And I just hope that you won't be discouraged just by what you're hearing in the news. And even though it does affect a smaller group of people, there are still lots of people getting approved their student visas, their visitor visas to come to the US. And there are many of us that are here to help you, that want you to succeed. This is why Rob and I, we do these sessions. We want you to know that, we're here for you and we believe in you and we know that you can achieve your dreams in the US. And we hope that you will try, do your best, give it your best shot, prepare the best way possible so that you can be here and have a life-changing education.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Mandy, for giving your valuable time to share all these updates and tips. And the mock interview and live Q&A is always so much fun. I know people really benefit from that. Again, if you guys want to join us next time, we share about these on social media and our newsletter. That's where you can sign up for a chance for the mock interview and get picked for that. And yeah, again, we have so many great free resources on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, our newsletter. So make sure you're following and subscribe to those things. Otherwise, you're just hurting your chances. And again, ZF Visa has awesome courses for student visas, tourist visas. They're affordable. They're worth it. We've got a discount code for you guys as well to say thanks. And we really appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Appreciate you being part of this community. And everyone have a good one. Cheers, everyone.
Bye, everyone.